Welcome to another episode of Frankly Speaking Sports Interview. I'm Larry Frank, and I'll tell you what, folks, what a great interview we got for you tonight. Tonight, joining us is he as a junior, senior. Uh, he led his team in scoring with Duke University. He was the ACC Rookie of the Year in 1977, first team All ACC from 1978 to 1980, and he was ACC Player of the Year in 1979. It is my great honor, thrill, and pleasure to introduce to you now on our show former Duke All American basketball star, 14-year NBA veteran, and college basketball TV analyst. Let's welcome in Mike Gminski. Mike, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm good, Larry. It's good to be with you.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to join us tonight. Mike, I have to go back to, when you think of Duke basketball, I want to start with your college career. You
hmm
think the 1960s, unbelievable teams as I was growing up in the 60s, Duke had. Then struggled through the 70s. But then a lot of people gave credit for, when Coach K came, the team came back to respectability, but that's not really the way it was. I always thought that the team came back to respectability when you played there from 76 to 80 and did some of the amazing things that team had done.
Yeah, and I try to piece together, and Larry, when I'm doing my ACC broadcasts, the history of the league is very important to me, and obviously the history of Duke is very important to me. And you touched on the '60s with Coach Vic Bubas, who was a genius and a great coach, and took those teams to four Final Fours. Not bad for that era, and things, and he left in 1970. Things bottomed out for about 5 or 6 years. And then Coach Foster came in, Bill Foster, who was my coach, and really put 3 consecutive years together, three pieces. Jimmy Spanarkel, Rookie of the Year in '76, me in '77, and Gene Banks in '78. And that was really the foundation of the teams. That next 3 years was a great run for us.
Yeah, and it wasn't, I want to talk about the 78 team for a minute.
hmm
People don't realize, yes, you played Kentucky in that game. Unfortunately, it was an unfortunate loss, but you had four players in that game that were in double figures. Three of you scored over 20 points, you being one of them. I believe Sparkle and Banks, who you mentioned just a few seconds ago, were the others. Is that the time when that Kentucky Duke rivalry really kicked off?
Yeah, I believe actually in the '60s. Well, Jeff Mullins is from Lexington, and him going to Duke was a big deal. And I believe they played. I don't know if it was. I don't think they played in the finals, but maybe in one of the semifinals. But I think that was probably the start of it. That was one of the well. That and then in my senior year, we played them. They had the first ever Hall of Fame classic to kick off the basketball season up in Springfield. We beat Kentucky that very first game, and then that year in the NCAA tournament, we had to play Kentucky in Rupp Arena in the NCAA tournament and beat them. So we bookended that year for them with two losses for Kentucky, and that plus '78 was probably the real start of everything.
And you speak of that 78 team. Was your expectations before that year started that you guys would actually get to the finals?
No, Larry, we were so young that I don't know that we had any expectations. You look at that team, and we started two freshmen, two sophomores, and a junior, which for that era was incredibly young. Now it happens all the time, but back then it was really young. And there was one game in particular in early February when we played North Carolina in Cameron. And Carolina had beat Duke like 17 of 18 games prior to that. The rivalry had gone down a little bit, and they came in. They were ranked third in the country, and we beat them. And that was Cameron was as loud as I'd ever heard it, and that was the game I think that really galvanized us and made us aware that we could do something special.
Before we go to your NBA career, talk about, I mean, you have two amazing, I mean, you have quite a few amazing achievements, obviously, especially during
Mhm.
your college basketball days. Talk about your number 43 being retired, as well as being named to the 50th anniversary team, and which considers you one of the 50th greatest players in the ACC history?
Yeah, they did that for the 50-year anniversary of the ACC, and which was within 2003, and we actually had the 75th anniversary coming up. But that, to be one of the top 50 players in that league in the first 50 years was an incredible honor. And the thing about my jersey retirement, they didn't tell me about it, and they did it before my last senior game. So it was the last time that all of us got introduced before the game. Then our AD Tom Butters comes out and says we've got a special announcement, and they give me, they retire my jersey. So my head is swimming for about the first 10 minutes of that game. We played Clemson and actually had to go into overtime and won that game. But it was such an emotional night on so many different levels. It was almost difficult. It was practically difficult to play the game.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I
Yeah.
looked at the year you were drafted, 1980, I believe it was, and I'm
Yep.
really surprised because they don't consider it one of the best drafts ever. But when you look at some of these names that were drafted the same year as you, Joe Barry Carroll, Daryl Griffith, Kevin McHale, Andrew Toney, Kiki Vandeweghe, Mike Woodson, Larry Drew, one of your former teammates, Rick Mahorn, Kurt Rambis, Rory Sparrow, and a guy that was drafted right before you that you played
Yep.
with on the Nets, Michael Corrin. I mean, this was an incredible, incredible draft. And for you to be picked seventh overall in this draft had to really, really be an honor for you.
Oh, no question. And and of course back then they probably had 8 or 9, rounds of the draft. It wasn't like it is now where it's only two. But yeah, I mean, you talk about those names, but I mean, the story for me was, well, obviously, realizing a dream and being drafted. And, Michael Corn and I beat each other's brains out for 4 years with the Duke Carolina thing and wind up being teammates and lifelong friends after that. But what Boston was able to do in a couple of years, they draft Larry Bird on the senior eligible. And then, so they're sitting with the first pick, and Golden State has the third pick. They swap positions and get Robert Parrish from Golden State, and then when the third pick, take Kevin McHale. So, in 2.5 years, they get Bird, McHale, and Parrish front line.
Yep.
It was just an incredible thing by Red Auerbach, incredible move there. And, everybody knows the history of what they did.
Yeah, unbelievable history. But when you look at what you guys did with the Nets, I mean, you were with the Nets for I believe 8 years. From 82 to 86, you make the playoffs. The Nets,
Yeah.
become respectable in the league. Talk about those teams. I mean, you played with some greats like Bird Song Dawkins. I know Buck Williams, who's been on our show, and Albert King. I mean, that was a pretty darn good team as well.
Yeah, no, we had some good talent. And, the one name you didn't mention was Michael Ray Richardson, who
That's right. Yep.
was our best player. Unfortunately, at that time was in the grips of cocaine. And, he was in and out of treatment. He was in and out of being a great player. I tell people when he was straight, he was as good a guard as there was in the league. I mean, he was that tough, and we were that good. But we had one year where we had like the fifth or sixth best record in the league going into late December, and we had a Christmas party, and Michael Ray had a relapse after that, and our season just fell. We made the playoffs, but we weren't the same team, without him. And but that group in '84, we beat the Sixers in the first round the year after they won the World Championship in '83. And when so there were some good teams. I have great friends from that time in Jersey. I loved my time there. But Philadelphia those were my best years, I think.
Yeah, and you segue me right into it. Perfect segue. Your final season with the Nets, you average 16 and a half points, 8.8 rebounds, and then you traded to Philadelphia. Now,
Mhm.
obviously, you can look back and you said it was a great thing for you, but at the time when you were traded, was there any friction that you felt from the Nets, or was it something you were expecting?
No, it was actually it's kind of a funny story that so my name had been floated around in the media up there. There was real interest on Philadelphia's part to get me. They were the ones who were really driving the trade, and so as things would have it, we go down to play the Sixers, and before the game, I've got 60 media people in front of me, going, "What's up?" And I'm like, "You guys know as much as I do." Would go out, we play the game, come back in, same people there. I said, "Fellas, I'm going to be on the bus going back to Jersey, as far as I know." And nothing happened. And the very next game, we are playing at home, and I had a bunch of relatives and family there down from Connecticut. And when I was walking off the floor after the game, our GM said, "You need to come up to the office." And um, so the Philadelphia GM John Nash was there, and he really pushed, and then they made the deal happen. And so I was 48 hours later, I was down in Philly.
Yeah, and then while you're there in Philly, you make the playoffs. It seems like everywhere you went, you made the
Mhm.
playoffs, and you made it twice. Talk about the character and the relationship you had with Charles Barkley on Philadelphia.
Well, he's like a brother to me now, and we bonded pretty quickly. He tested me early, and I passed the test with him, and and then we get Rick Mahorn in, who I played against all those years, coming from Connecticut like I did, and we just we beat on each other for a number of years before we were finally teammates, and we bonded really quickly. And that team, Larry, was as close to my Duke team as far as us being a group together. And we were a couple of bench players away from being an elite team. Our starting five was as good as anybody. We just didn't have a lot of depth. And but some great teams. And Charles, I mean, for people out there, I mean, what you see on the set on TNT is what you get live. I mean, he's the same guy, and he loves people. I've never seen a more accessible megastar than him. I mean, he loves being out in public. He's very accommodating with everybody who he sees. Just a big heart, and he's such a great he was such a great teammate and has been such a great brother to me.
Did you ever think that Barkley would go into doing the analysis and the pregame show like he's done when you look back then? Would you have ever thought he would do this?
Yeah, I mean, it was funny. I was praying that he wasn't going to go into politics because I don't think he could have survived the vetting process there. But he had the personality for it, and that I mean, you know how those studio shows are. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. And Ernie Johnson really has done a masterful job over the years of making that whole thing work. And then they add Shaq, to Kenny and to Charles. And, it just, you put it in a beaker, you shake it up, and you hope for the best. And, they win Emmy after Emmy every year.
Yeah, and they deserve it. I'll tell you that much. When I look at some of the plays you had to go up against in your NBA career. I mean, you talked about Parrish already, but Moses Malone, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I know Akeem Olajuwon, but it goes on and on. Jack Sikma, Bill Lambier, Mark Eaton, Daryl Dawkins, just to name a few. Talk about the physicality back then, Mike, compared to what it is today, and who was the not necessarily the best, but the toughest SOB that sometimes you just wanted to smack in the head when you played against him.
Well, I mean, the game was so much more physical. I mean, there was no such thing as flagrant one, flagrant two, all these things. I mean, if you had all of your limbs on, it was a common foul, and you could get up and and shoot. And it was either that or you got ejected. It got so egregious that you were thrown out of the game. But there was no level of hard foul. Every foul was a hard foul. And to your point, I mean, I've had people who suggest I write a book because my rookie year, I played against Wes Unseld, Artis Gilmore, Dave Cowens, that older generation. And then, the guys that you mentioned, David Robinson in that group. I played against Artis Gilmore. Back when there were centers, Hall of Fame centers all over the place, and it was a great time to compete in the league. I have no doubt now that with the way the game has changed, I'd have been practicing my 3-point shot a lot more than I did back then. Would have been a stretch five in this game, but it was a little more conventional, a little more post oriented back then. The two guys. Moses Malone, another one who we haven't mentioned. I mean, I could go on and on about the guys who were up in Springfield, but Kareem was impossible. I had the best seat in the house. I was right underneath him looking up when he was shooting his sky hook, and it either went in or it didn't. I had very little to do with that outcome. And but Elijah was probably a close second as to toughest to guard, and just his athleticism and his skill level was incredible.
Yeah, and you mentioned something. I'm watching the Eastern Conference Finals when the Pacers Knicks, and I never understood it because you mentioned how the 3-pointer. It's no surprise it's taken over the game by storm, but you see a breakaway in transition where a guy has an easy two, can dunk it home, and he dishes it out for a 3-point shot that has a less percentage of being made.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that's disappeared the most is the mid-range game, and kind of ironic that this year's MVP, Alexander, that's the strongest part of his game, arguably, is that mid-range jump shot, and so that was a little refreshing to see. But yeah, I mean, the 3-point shot and the straight line drive are the two most valued things in the two most valued shots. And if you get to the free throw line, great.
Mike, one of the things in your NBA career that you were outstanding at, and you don't see a lot of big men that are outstanding at it, is free throw shots, which are exactly what they're named for. They're free shots where you're not covered.
Mhm.
Why do so many big men have trouble making it, and what made it possible, in your opinion, for you to be so successful at it?
Well, for me, I valued it. I mean, that was a primary way of me scoring, and I mean, just about virtually every team that I played on, I shot the technical fouls as well. And like you said, I didn't view that as a rest period or just kind of a place where action stopped. I mean, I really concentrated, and you touched on two other guys who were great free throw shooters, Jack Sikma and Bill Lambier, are probably the three of the were three of the highest percentage shooting centers that have played. But other than that, it's just technique and concentration and how much you value that shot, and I valued it greatly.
Now, how did you get involved? After your basketball career, you went in and you still are a college basketball analyst. I know you don't work with, like you said, the ACC, you've been on CBS. When did you decide, hey, I would like to go into being an analyst? And did you realize how much preparation actually goes into doing the job? Because a lot of them that come in from the game of basketball say, I didn't realize there was this much. It's like a game day
Mhm.
preparation.
Well, and you touch on a great point, Larry. The guys who flame out are the ones who don't work, who just who think they can just show up, be a name, and that's enough. And if you're doing a game and you've got to carry a 2.5 hour broadcast, you've got to to put in the work. And I was very lucky. I had some good advice, some good coaching, some good critique. That summer, I wasn't sure what I was going to do, and the gentleman who was the head of broadcast operations with the Hornets, a guy named Steve Martin, approached me. We had lunch, and he said, "We have a position open. Do you think you want to be a part of be a part of the broadcast team?" And I was thinking about politics. I was thinking about maybe going to law school, but then the broadcasting really intrigued me, and it was funny. I had conversations, especially Marv Albert was. He said, "Do yourself a favor, in the first couple of years, go on radio. It's the best training you're going to have." And he was absolutely right. And you're doing 100 games a year with a team on radio, and you get a lot of reps in, and that was invaluable for my career. And then I switched over to TV, but I still have a great love for doing a game on radio.
Talk about college basketball a minute, the state of college basketball. How do you view it today? Is it in a good place, a bad place? I mean, with NIL, with people making so much money now off those deals, and also the transfer portal, and I'll just be upfront with you, I'm not a big fan of it. But what
Yeah.
is your view on the state of college basketball?
Yeah, I mean, I think there was probably a slim to none chance that they were going to get it right out of the gate and have the model like it was going to be for the till the end of time. It's like the wild wild west now, and that's probably not to be unexpected. I would think the next step, I don't have a problem with the money at all, but I think the next step are player contracts where you can maybe lock a guy in for a year or two, and there's got to be a buyout if he wants to leave. The portal's a little out of control. There's one guy in the upcoming year this is going to be his third ACC team that he's played for, and that's not out of the realm of unusual these days. And that blows my mind. I can't ever think, I can't ever put myself in that position where I think I'd play for anyone other than Duke. So I think it's going to get reined in. I think that there's no going back to the way it was, but I think there's going to be some more stability as time unfolds.
Mike, I understand the transfer portal for things that happen like emergencies, unfortunate death in a family, an illness to a family member. Those things make sense to me. But to me, and I'd love to get your opinion on this, I think with the transfer portal, it gives a player a way out if they're getting disciplined, and it doesn't really teach them how to handle adversity or discipline in today's era.
Well, I think, and not to throw the whole system under the bus, but I think that comes out of playing in AAU basketball, where in back in the day, you had your high school coach, and that's who you played for, and that was the voice in your ear. And then you had your college coach, and that was the voice in your ear. Now you got 100 different voices in your ear, and if you don't like the coach where you are, you go play somewhere else. Or if you don't feel like you're getting enough minutes, you go somewhere else. And when over 1,000 players a year put their name in the portal, something's flawed with that. I mean, most of that is, I'm going to put my name out there and see if there's a better deal for me. I mean, that's all it is, and that has to be reined in somehow.
A couple more questions. We'll let you go, Mike.
Okay.
Mike, I've seen it, and I've seen it more in the college football area, but it's college sports in general. I wanted to ask you this. I've been dying to ask you this question. I'm seeing people, and it's almost like they're excited to say it. This is their seventh year playing in college athletics with this eligibility and things like that. When you have a 7 year senior playing his seventh year of eligibility, isn't that going a little too far?
Well, it's funny, and I think the COVID year is going to go away, so that's going to take it down a little bit. And but the first time I ran into that was when I was doing the NCAA tournament with CBS, and we'd go out west, and a lot of the Mormon schools would have, they'd recruit a guy, he'd go on a 2-year mission for the church, and they'd have seniors who were 24 years old, and that was the first time I'd ever run into that. But now if you look at the teams who have been winning, like for this year, Houston, I mean, there was a lot of men running around out on that court, and the teams with the older guys have been winning the championships. And going back a couple of years when North Carolina went to the Final Four, their starting five's average age was older than the OKC Thunders. Just to show you, they had a guy who was 25 playing and a couple of guys who were 23. So, yeah, no, I hear you with the age, but that's what's been winning for a lot of these guys.
Yeah, I know it's amazing how it happens, but it's crazy. That's the world of college sports nowadays. Before I let you run, Mike, you've had some personal experiences where you made decisions to go ahead and give back through your experience, which I think is fascinating. Talk about
Mhm.
how you're giving back, doing motivational speaking and helping others who have had alcohol abuse through some of your experience, and
Mhm.
what made you decide to go ahead and say, let me show through my experience to other people how they can handle situations?
Well, and Larry, for your audience who may not know my story, I'm coming up on 5 years in recovery from alcohol, and I knew right from the start that me getting help and going through the process was not going to be a private thing. And so I decided to be very public with my recovery and decided that I'm going to try to help as much through my journey as I can with other people. And it's really been a great 5 years from that standpoint. I'm working for a group here in Charlotte. I'm partners with a group called Sana Recovery, and SANA recovery.com. And we've got some sober living houses. We've got a treatment center, and it's been very rewarding for me to come on forums like this, tell my story, and really get people comfortable with talking about an issue that it's a problem. And while there is some shame involved with it, not enough to keep you out of treatment, or not enough that you shouldn't be open about talking about it.
Yeah, and it's amazing, and it's incredible that you do that, and I know that's incredible. Well, listen, Mike, I know we're running out of time here. I want to thank you so very, very much taking time out of your busy schedule to join us tonight.
Well, I appreciate it, and enjoy watching the finals. It should be interesting with OKC and Indiana. But I'll be watching that with it. I still follow the NBA very closely, although I've been doing college for a lot of years.
Well, I have to ask you this then, one question before we leave. What did you think about Thibodeau being fired by the Knicks?
It seemed like he had the support of his team, and it just appeared from the outside that that was a Jim Dolan owner move more than anything. And it's unfortunate. And I tell you what, it takes a special person to coach in that market. It also takes a special type of player to go in. And into New York City, you may be a big dog somewhere else, but there are a lot of guys like that who have gone into that market and gotten chewed up. So it's going to be interesting. I thought Tibbs did a great job of handling all that. It looked like his players really enjoyed him. It's going to be interesting to see who they hire.
Yeah. All right, my friend. I want to thank you so very much for joining us. Thanks again, and you best of luck to you, buddy.
I appreciate it, Larry. Thank you. It's great being with you.
You too. Thanks again. All right, that was the great Mike Gminski. This is Frankly Speaking Sports. I'm Larry Frank. Good night. All right, Mike. Thanks so much, buddy.
Yeah, no worries, man. I hope you just send me the link where I can watch it, or I can put it out. I can put it out on my social media so people can tune in and see you.
I definitely will. Thanks again, buddy.
All right, thanks. Have a great evening.
You too.